Start tearing this ship apart piece by piece until you find those tapes. Find the passengers of this vessel. I want them alive!
Chris Kelsey here with
Matt Howell.
And on this episode of The First Run, Matt and I take an oath to tell you the truth. Well, mostly just the truth. We're gonna tell you about Aaron Sorkin's adaptation of The Trial of the Chicago 7. Matt, courtroom dramas are a staple of the drama genre, and Sorkin's scripts are typically filled kind of with these rousing moments. So will this be a winner, or in the end, are we all guilty? Then our banned marathon begins, Matt, with Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ. Banned and censored in numerous countries. How offensive and blasphemous is this adaptation of Nikos Kazantzakis' novel? It'll be the thrilling review of all the major releases on physical media featuring your streaming and straight-to-DVD picks of the week. And then finally, Matt and I will share our 5 favorite Martin Scorsese scenes. Let's go get your shine box. And let's hear a little bit from The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Sustained.
Nobody objected.
We do. It's well known there's no love lost between the witness and the sitting attorney general. This witness has been called to wage a political attack and should not be allowed to appear before the jury.
Mr. Consul.
Your Honor, you cannot possibly be considering not allowing the jury to hear what we've just heard?
The witness can't present to them testimony that would assist in making a determination of guilt or innocence.
He just testified. His own Justice Department came to the conclusion
The current Justice Department, which is the only one that matters, came to a new conclusion.
And therefore, the motivation of the prosecution has to be called into question.
The motivation of the prosecution is not an issue in a courtroom.
In any courtroom I've ever been in, except this one.
Object. Mr. Consul, do you have any further examination that will demonstrate that this witness will make a material contribution, or should I just ask him to step down?
Man, let me tell you, for me, Frank Langella, Matt, is still bringing it. Whenever he elevates for me everything he's in. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I whenever I see his name show up, I know I'm going to be in for at least one great performance. So, The Trial of the Chicago 7, why don't you tell the fine folks, Matt, they're doing their holiday shopping, and they're tired of all the Christmas music, and they want to listen to just some really top-tier film discussion. So they've come to us. What is The Trial of the Chicago 7 all about?
So it's the late 60s. Lyndon B. Johnson, his term is up. It is in the eve of a new election between Richard Nixon and Hubert Humphrey. A group of activists from other different methods, different sides, get together in Chicago to protest the Vietnam War that continues to go on. Unfortunately, one thing happens after another, and there's a riot, and the 7 of them, well, 8 technically, get arrested and hauled in front of a judge and to determine their culpability in inciting a riot. Is it a political trial or is it a criminal trial? That's the question.
Matt, I love me a courtroom drama. Big fan of this kind of stuff. So let me ask you, let's answer that initial question, right? Is this film a winner? Does it deliver all of this courtroom kind of drama stuff that we all expect? Or is this kind of just... Is Sorkin just really too Sorkin-y at this point?
It can be both, right?
Exactly.
It can be both. Yeah, I mean, it can be both. I had a good time watching this. I thought it was a very well done court drama. The material, is still, unfortunately, incredibly relevant today. The particulars may be different, but it's the same kind of thing that we see going on now. Many of the actors, between Langella, like you said, or Baron Cohen, or Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they're all very good to great in this. But at the same time, this does have the hallmarks of a lot of Sorkin films. There's a lot of pitter-patter dialogue. There's some grandstanding. But overall, being, a filthy commie leftist as I am, I was okay with it. So I thoroughly enjoyed this.
It is enjoyable. I will grant you that. I think that's a good way to describe it. It's... As you said, it's easily identifiable as Sorkin. As I'm watching this thing, it just, there's some artists and some presenters with the Kitchen Bee where their work it screams them, right? I think Mammoth's another one is the same way. And I think, you can see that all over this thing. There are many kind of great moments peppered throughout the film. Each character kind of has their moment to shine. You have your reliable one-liners that he always gives everybody. And the only struggle I had with it is, at times it felt a little too calculated to me, right? This thing is wrapped so tight in him telling the story he wants to tell. And this is an adaptation, let's be honest here, all right? Because things are moved around timeline-wise. It's like Bohemian Rhapsody, but just not as offensive as that film was. With that, just because like Fred Hampton passes away prior to the gagging that Bobby Seale has to endure. And from what I understand, too, Seale was able to get out of his restraints numerous times during that moment. So the actual events and everything kind of feels just supplanted to fit Sorkin's narrative and his storytelling preferences. But don't get me wrong, this thing is eminently watchable, right? As courtroom dramas go that are loosely based on true events, it is a winner, and I think it's really entertaining. What really bothered me, though, is the ending. It is so contrived. His ham-fisted presentation of them standing upright and reading the names of the fallen in the Vietnam War, it robs the moment of any gravitas whatsoever. And you see it coming from almost the beginning of the film, right? And the way the music swells, and it's just so corny the way he presents it, that I wish I could, I don't know, maybe in a different director's hands, I think this film would have been handled a lot better. And doing my research, I see that Spielberg actually was supposed to direct this back in 2007. But things didn't kind of shake out. And then Sorkin directed Molly's Game, which was solid. If you haven't seen that, that's an entertaining drama / thriller as well. But watching this makes me just want him out of the director's chair. Might give him another shot, I guess. But I think maybe if I think about what Spielberg would have done with this material, I think it would have been even better. It's solid, but it's just so ham-fisted at times. It just drove me crazy.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I'm not very familiar with the actual events that this is based off of, so I'll take your word for it that things are moved around. I agree with you that it is a little corny in areas. I kind of chalk that up to historical courtroom drama, not so much, Sorkin's direction, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he just couldn't avoid the cliche shorthand that we're used to that has just become, trite at this point. Yeah, I don't know. But I agree with you that those moments are there and they are a disservice to the film.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to have seen what maybe Spielberg could have done with this film. I think it would have been even better than it is. And other stuff like Abby Hoffman was much more radical than I think he's even portrayed in this film. And I think he goes a little soft on the left. He was no fan of like the Democratic Party or anything either. So it's
right.
There's just little touches throughout. Like I said, it's not as offensive as Bohemian Rhapsody was. I could feel I could do a whole hour-long video on all the stuff that movie gets wrong. But still, it's fine. I guess, Matt, I am going to end up giving The Trial of Chicago 7 a B.
That's exactly what I'm giving it as well.
Look at
I
that.
had a good enough time watching this.
Oh, for sure. And if you like courtroom dramas, and I think this is going to be very entertaining for you, has some great performances as well. Just like you said, Eddie Redmayne, who I'm not the biggest fan of for the most part, is pretty solid in this as well. Jeremy Strong, another guy I'm never overly impressed with. I guess he's a big hit on Succession right now, right? That's one of his big shows, but still, same. John Carroll Lynch, who is one of those guys, when you see him, you know exactly who he is, who plays Dellinger. Of course, Mark Rylance, who's been writing that Best Supporting Actor win from, the Tom Hanks film, where he played the spy. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name of that one.
Bridge of Spies?
Yes, thank you. Where he won that year. I remember being very upset about that because I didn't think he deserved to win. But who am I, really, except your favorite, barely known film critic here. So, fair enough. The Trial of the Chicago 7 is currently streaming on Netflix. If you've had a chance to see it, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, coming up on Physical Media this upcoming Tuesday, December 8th. Well, a one-timer is getting its physical media release, but there's a movie being released on 4K that I just have to talk about because it stars you-know-who.
Sorry, Quaid. Your whole life is just a dream.
Okay, then. If I'm not me, who the hell am I?
Beats me. I just work here. Doug. Doug, there's something I want you to know. You were the best assignment I ever had. Really.
I'm honored.
You sure you don't want to? Just for old time's sake? Come on. If you don't trust me, you can tie me up.
I didn't know you're so kinky.
Maybe it's time you found out.
Clever girl. You son of a bitch.
So, of course, Total Recall is getting a 4K release. Matt, there is a UK version from Studio Canal that includes a double disc soundtrack, only available in this initial collector's edition. It also has like a poster, a 48-page booklet, 6 art cards. They really went out on this. The Lionsgate version being released here in the States doesn't have all the extra goodies. But outside of that, almost all the special features are the same across the board. So I bought this on iTunes for $5 because I only had it on DVD about 6 months ago.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about it.
Of course you are. You can't help yourself, can you?
No, I can't. So I also wanted to mention, too, briefly, we had talked last week because Lord of the Rings in 4K is now out, as well as The Hobbit. And we had mentioned that this set is not going to include the Blu-rays. So if you want to wait for those, you have to wait till next year. Well, I think, neglected to point out that this is a bare-bones set where it's just the films. There are no special features. Mm-hmm. So if you want the special features, and there will be new ones as well, they'll be included in a set at some point in 2021. So I don't know now, Matt. I was all in, I think, on just getting those 4K discs and wanted to watch this around Christmas. But part of me now, if there's going to be new features as well as all or most of, who knows, of the archived featurettes, I may hold off. Does that change your calculus at all?
I don't know. I'm not much of a special features guy. As much as I love The Lord of the Rings, and I have to really ask myself, is the extra, and not even so much the extra weight, is the extra expense going to be worth it for something that there's a 90% chance I'm never going to watch it?
That's fair. And you know what, too? I had a similar, those last few days, I've been thinking about things, and this is really sad, but I've been thinking about it in the terms of my age.
Right.
So and am I going to, do I want to wait a year? I probably won't watch all of these special features anyway. And do I want to waste the limited time I have to watch films to watch just special features of the Lord of the Rings films?
Think of all the movies that you have that you haven't even opened, that you haven't opened and never watched. Are you going to spend time watching Lord of the Rings? It's, again, as much as I love it, Lord of the Rings special features for the dozens of movies that you haven't seen, plus the dozens more that are going to be coming out.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
But at the same time, I'm a collector, and so are you. And you've got that just in that little back of your mind that's saying, but there's something that's going to be bigger and more comprehensive that's coming out. It's a tough call. It really is. But I still have my Blu-ray versions. I still have all of those old special features. I'm just going to buy probably the bare bones one because really it's mostly just for the films themselves. And I don't know. I'm probably not going to wait. That's just me, though.
I did decide that I'm going to put if I do get just the 4K ones, I'm going to take them out and put them in my DVD books.
Okay.
Because I love those extended edition DVD. They look like, the books.
Yeah.
So I may put them in that instead.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do. Life is horrible. Also coming out is Possessor, Brandon Cronenberg's film that we did for the show about a month or so ago. There is going to be a cut version, Matt, released for places like Walmart and all the like, who don't want to handle all the erect penises that occasionally pop up in that film. There is a new horror film called Smiley Face Killers, written by just a wonderful guy, Bret Easton Ellis. A handsome young soccer player, Jake Graham, believes he is going insane and is unable to shake the feeling he's being stalked. His friends and everyone around him believe he's just anxious and prone to paranoia. But Jack is actually being followed by a small group of serial killers led by a deformed and terrifying guru. Also coming out is The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. This is Coppola's re-editing of the film. Right. And I gotta admit, I'm curious. I've heard it's better, that it's a better experience. And it is going to be exhibited theatrically here beginning Friday. I don't know if I'm going to go to the theater to see this. I may just buy the Blu-ray. I think it's like $12 right now. So I don't know if I'm going to venture out. Though I got to admit, Matt, I think Nomadland is coming here in 2 weeks. And then Christmas Day, we're getting Wonder Woman and Promising Young Woman. Which I am still desperate to see Promising Young Woman. So I got some decisions to make. Maybe it'll cost my life, but nobody really cares anyway. Criterion is releasing Mouchette? It's a French film. Mouchon?
Okay. I can't see the word, so I have no idea.
Machete. She's a young girl living in the country. Her mother is dying, and her father does not take care of her. So she remains silent in the face of the humiliation she undergoes. One night in the wood, she meets Arsene, the village poacher, who thinks he's just killed the local policeman. He tries to use Machete to build an alibi. The brand new 4K restoration of the film, a 1967 documentary featuring the director, says Robert Bresson, on the set of the making of the film that's not called Machete, and more. Criterion is also releasing, I don't know how to say this. I'm going to give it a shot. Symbiocytotoxoplasm. 2 takes by William Greaves. I think I nailed that. So it's 2 films. Take 1, filmmaker William Greaves auditioned acting students for a fictional drama while simultaneously shooting the behind-the-scenes drama actually taking place. And take 2.5. In Central Park in 1968, a director shoots scenes of a young couple whose marriage was falling apart. 35 years later, they come back to Central Park as a director relentlessly pursues the ever-elusive, here we go, symbiocytotoxoplasmic moment. 2 for 2. High-definition digital transfers of both films. Let's see what else. And more. Discovering William Greaves, a 2006 documentary on his career. Interview in 2006 with actor Steve Buscemi. And more. Arrow is releasing Versus, along with Ultimate Versus included in the pack. This is the Japanese action film, and they're going to give you the first film. Oh, well, it's the same film, but it was re-edited with more footage added in later on. It's a kind of a, I don't know, just a recut of the film. First pressing includes an illustrated collector's booklet, so you can pick that up. Kino Lorber releasing one of my favorite films from the 80s, Matt, I have not seen since the 80s, so I have no idea if it's actually any good, and that's My Science Project. Did you ever see that one?
Oh, yeah, that was like the kind of companion piece to Weird Science, wasn't it? Yeah, I haven't seen that in forever.
These kids find this strange kind of glowing orb that absorbs electricity, but they end up kind of jumping back and forth through time, I think, because of it.
Right.
I don't know. If it's cheap enough, I may pull a trigger just to see. Maybe we can rent it someplace. I'm not sure. Arrow's releasing Survivor Ballads, 3 films by Shone Imimura. You're going to get all 3 of these movies with restored high-definition presentations, brand new audio commentaries on all 3 films, brand new in-depth appreciations of all 3, an alternate color ending to the film Black Rain, archival interviews with actors and actresses, and more. We talked about Total Recall, and then Cinema Paradiso, Matt, is getting a 4K release. What else? We got some big stuff here. Oh, okay. Here's one I've been thinking about getting, because I don't own this one. Michael Mann's Collateral is getting a 4K release as well. I recently watched this. It was on one of the streaming services a while ago, I think. And I still enjoyed it. It's really good. Cruise is great in this thing. So
yeah.
If you haven't seen Collateral, it is a lot of fun. Includes deleted scenes with commentary, audio commentary with Michael Mann, a making of featurette, and more. Here's straight to DVD pick of the week, Matt. I'm going with Centipede. No, not that one. David and his adventurous group of friends embark upon an expedition within the deep and treacherous Sankali caverns of India. As the group descends deep into the caves, they discover they have trapped themselves within the breeding den of giant black centipedes. Now they must find a way out of the caves and escape the terrifying, overgrown insects. Now, let me tell you, centipedes, and bugs in general, but centipedes freak me the hell out.
Really?
I don't know what it is, but long insects always don't sit right with me. I don't know what it is. I don't have a affection for them at all.
That's a very specific phobia.
Yeah, well, I'm a big scaredy cat. What should we be streaming this week?
So, in honor of us getting ready to review a controversial film, maybe the most controversial film by one of the great directors or one of the great American directors, I'm going to recommend something similar for Stanley Kubrick. Eyes Wide Shut is becoming available again on Hulu. It stars Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in their last role together right before they had their acrimonious split. I'm not even quite sure what Eyes Wide Shut. I don't even know how I would describe what Eyes Wide Shut is about. I would say that there's a lot of conspiracy. There's hidden societies and an orgy, a really long orgy. So check it out. I mean, it's got a reputation as not being Kubrick's strongest, and had a bit of a controversial reputation. So I think it fits for the theme of the rest of the show.
If you do watch it, you'll kind of get a peek into Matt's lifestyle as well. So you should.
It's toned down. It's toned down a lot for the screen, but the themes are there.
That's true. And I want to say too, I've watched, Matt, if you haven't seen it yet, on Shudder, is The Leap of Faith. It's this documentary conversation with William Friedkin on the making of The Exorcist.
Oh, okay.
And it is really good. So if you get a chance, folks, you should check it out.
We'll do.
All right, before we move on, I have one question for Matt. He was off last week and was tasked to watch at least one film in particular. And I'm curious, Matt, have you watched One Cut of the Dead?
No, I did not. Sorry, it was a very busy week for me. I didn't do like half the stuff I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm gonna give you the rest of the month.
Thank you. You're gonna give me until the rest of the year?
And if not, I'm gonna Clockwork Orange your ass somehow.
Okay.
And, yeah, you'll watch that film. All right, let's go ahead and begin our banned marathon. These are films, Matt, that have been banned in some country, in some manner, some way, at some point. I like to be vague. And we're starting everything off with Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ.
So you are the king of the Jews?
King's your word.
Well, you are Jesus of Nazareth, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Well, that's what they're saying. You are the king, the Messiah. It's also said that you do miracles. Is this good magic or bad magic? Could we have some kind of demonstration? I mean, can you do a trick for me now, say?
No, I'm not a trained animal. I'm not a magician.
Well, that's disappointing. This means that you're just another Jewish politician. Do you want to know something? You're more dangerous than the Zealots. Do you know that?
So, thankfully, I was able to work in David Bowie into the show in some capacity.
I knew you'd find a way.
Thank you. Yes, Bowie, of course, plays Pontius Pilate in Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ. This is an adaptation of Nikos Kazantzakis' novel. Just really a novel that was, terrified a lot of people. It's basically an examination, or I shouldn't say that, but it's more of an interpretation of what Jesus may have actually been like as a man, as a human being, really tasked with being the Son of God and trying to redeem all of mankind. And this is a film that Scorsese had wanted to make for a very long time. There actually was an aborted version at one point with a different cast and crew that including one of them was, I guess, Sting was supposed to play Pontius Pilate at some point, right? And Christ was supposed to be played by Anthony Quinn and a bunch of other stuff. But then the studio got cold feet and backed out. And then years later, they were able to kind of come together. Basically, Scorsese cut the budget in half and trimmed down the filming time so we can get this done. And then they did it, and here it is. Matt, this film was banned in Greece, Turkey, Mexico, Chile, Argentina, the Philippines, Singapore, and censored in many others. And it is, of course, available here. It's part of the Criterion Collection, actually, in in a Blu-ray set. And Matt, what do you think? So is this film really as controversial as it's known? How offensive and blasphemous is this thing really?
Yeah, so it's interesting. You're about to hear a discussion from an agnostic and an atheist on the religious merits of a film about Jesus, and whether it's blasphemous or not. It's interesting to me that being a lapsed Catholic, it is always been talked about how Jesus is the Son of God, and that he's got that, obviously that duality. He's spirit and he's man, and the part that gets glossed over is the man part. And honestly, watching this, except for a few initial parts of it before the crucifixion actually happens, I didn't find anything particularly controversial about this. I mean, it sticks to the most part the biblical story. I mean, there's how many days is it? 30 days in the desert? 40 days in the desert?
40,
where he has 40 days in the desert where he has his visions, the raising of Lazarus, the performing of miracles, making the blind can see. All of that is in this. And the way it's presented isn't necessarily, I didn't find anything particularly blasphemous about it. I mean, except for maybe there's a little bit more questioning from Jesus. Maybe he's not as divine or as pure as you would expect to see, or as the stories would have you tell. I mean, this thing doesn't really get controversial until the crucifixion and the actual temptation comes. And then that's where it kind of deviates heavily. But I thought it was an interesting take. Whether it's particularly effective as a film or enjoyable as a film, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I think I appreciate what it was trying to do and what it was trying to say as an intellectual exercise, but I can't say I necessarily had a good time watching this. I would not put this anywhere near any of Scorsese's better films.
Interesting. All right, so I think this film is technically blasphemous by the strict definition of that term, because it does portray Jesus basically not as this puritanical, holy, all is love kind of being, all accepting kind of thing, right? And it also does a lot with the apostles. That basically, I think one of the most interesting turns is Keitel as Judas. Now,
right.
I have thoughts about Keitel in this film, but the reinterpretation of Judas in the mythos, I guess that's probably a better term than that, but is entirely different. It's entirely upended, where he's more Jesus' confidant, his best friend. The rest of the disciples tend to be kind of these hanger-ons, right?
Yeah.
Who would just kind of become enamored with the whole concept of everything. But the only one he's really close with is Judas. And in fact, that his betrayal is actually a plan. It's something that Jesus directs him to do because he knows basically what the end game here is going to be. And it was really interesting to kind of watch that interpretation. I will say, Keitel, I don't know what he's doing in this film half the time. And there is no consistency in accents throughout this entire film. Everybody just kind of talks how they talk.
Right.
Which I think was an interesting choice by Scorsese. And I'm going to assume it's a choice. I look at this thing as one kind of big art project. When you factor in those performances, when you factor in kind of the minimalist set pieces. Now, I know part of that is the fact that we're dealing with a reduced budget, but I think that's also part of what Scorsese is going for here. You throw in Peter Gabriel's just sorrowful and kind of just almost pained score throughout this thing as well. His use of light and darkness is just, I don't know, this film is just really interesting on a lot of levels. I really enjoyed Dafoe's performance as Christ in this film, how he really is just, he shows Jesus as a man. He imbues his Jesus with humanity. He resists, he's angry, he's afraid, he's confused. His performance while doing the miracles, really, he appears unsure about what's going to happen, right? Like what even he expects to happen. I really was impacted by Dafoe in this. I thought he really exude just this guy who has this stuff thrust upon him, accepts it, becomes terrified, doesn't want to do it. He's angry, he's confused. And it's just an exact opposite of, the Jesus that you were taught as a child. I grew up as Episcopalian, which is just kind of Catholic light. And
yeah, it's Church of England.
Exactly. So I don't know. It was really interesting, I thought, at times. I mean, Christ mocks and disparages the disciples a bunch of times throughout this thing. All, of course, but Judas. Mary Magdalene's role is slightly tweaked, though still, I think, not correct. If you look at some of the kind of historical books and writings on her, she's not a prostitute. She's just a woman. She's actually, I think, in a lot of ways considered an equal of all the apostles. But of course, the way the story has since been written, the woman, her role gets reduced, but that's another thing altogether. I just really thought there was really interesting alterations to the mythos in this film. And finally, Matt, that last temptation where Christ he gets to see his life if he did not have to sacrifice himself at the crucifixion is, I think, really interesting. Now, of course, we all know what's happening the whole time, but it's interesting to have his character go through that journey through all of those years that pass by. And finally, Judas shows up and he's like, bro, what are you doing? Come on. gives him the kick in the pants he needs, right? Still, interesting. Really interesting film. The only other thing I'll say is that it's a film very much trapped in its time. And this is something I feel a lot about films in the mid to late 80s into the early 90s, where almost all of cinema has this quality that I've struggled to identify. I think is everything just too slick. It doesn't feel organic to me. Everything kind of has, I don't know, Matt. Do you know what I'm saying when there's this kind of aesthetic of...
Yes, I think it's very fair to say that there are certain genres of film that obviously are of its time, right? So if we're talking about Scorsese, in his early works, the films of the 70s, they have a very certain feel and look to them and cadence, and though that kind of transcends or kind of transitions to what we're looking at here. And what's interesting is it seems that Scorsese is still holding on to a bit of that 70s, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? 70s sensibility, but he's kind of being dragged into a more modern flair. Now, obviously, that what was modern then has become dated in age now, but it seems like it's like a transition, and he's not really comfortable kind of straddling those two lines yet. He hasn't moved into what he became in Casino or Goodfellas, those kinds of things later in the 90s.
Yeah.
This, it seems like it's a transition from his 70s work to his 90s work, and it doesn't really work. I think that's part of what's jarring to me. To me, it doesn't seem like an 80s film. It really doesn't seem like an 80s film.
I don't know, just the way it's shot, it looks to me, everything felt so flat and as I said, inorganic in that window of time in the mid to late 80s into the early 90s. Interesting. I don't know. Either way, I ended up giving The Last Temptation of Christ a B+, Matt. There's a lot of stuff in this thing that I just found fascinating. A lot of stuff frustrated me. Stuff I still don't understand, like Keitel's performance in this thing. I don't understand.
So bad. I'm not a huge fan of Harvey Keitel in general. He's basically got one role, and it either works really well or it doesn't. And this is it doesn't kind of thing. Imagine this is like Mr. White with like a red wig on, and he's basically playing the same character. Is really what this is.
Just weird, very weird. What are you going to give it?
I'm going to give it a B. I think it's very interesting, like you said. I think it's definitely worth a watch. Although I can't say how much of a rewatch value this thing has. Maybe it'll grow on me as we continue, but I think this is for people who are kind of looking into the kind of deeper layers into some of the great directors, canon or catalog, I should say. Yeah, definitely worth a look if you're a cinephile, but I don't know, don't watch it with your super religious grandma. She probably will not appreciate it.
Oh, good God, no. Do not do that. If you've seen The Last Temptation of Christ, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, next up on our band marathon will be Ken Russell's The Devils. So we're going to foray even further into some religious stuff there with Oliver Reed and Vanessa Redgrave and just a bunch of really messed up, horny monks and nuns and stuff. So,
oh, great! I know next to nothing about this film, so I'm going in completely blind. I'm not even going to look into it really about what it's about.
I know of it, and it's supposed to have a very kind of scandalous reputation. But I guess we'll find out next week. So Marty, we all love Marty, Matt, and everybody has their favorite Marty scenes. So we are now going to share our 5 favorite with you. Here's one, though, Matt, that just didn't quite make the cut for me.
How old are you, Amsterdam?
Not too sure. Never did figure it.
I'm 47. 47 years old. You know how I stayed alive this long? All these years? Fear. The spectacle of fearsome acts. Somebody steals from me, I cut off his hands. He offends me, I cut out his tongue. He rises against me, I cut off his head, stick it on a pike. Raise it high up so all in the streets can see. That's what preserves the order of things. Fear.
So, of course, that's Daniel Day-Lewis as Bill the Butcher, along with Leo DiCaprio in Gangs of New York.
I haven't seen that movie in forever. I don't remember much about it.
I know, I've been meaning to revisit it for a very long time. But again, I end up watching some Schwarzenegger film instead, or who knows what else. You know, I've been watching old Bond films, actually, lately. I watched both Dalton films in the last 2 weeks. I've watched 2 Roger Moore films as well. I don't know, I've been on a weird Bond kick, so.
Yeah. All right. I think for the show, the last 2 movies that weren't for the show were I watched Godfather 1 and 2 when they were on TV over Thanksgiving break.
Nice. So, all right. I'm going to intercut a couple clips as we go here, Matt.
Okay.
So heads up, we're going to get the explicit warning. I don't know how you can avoid it.
Yeah, okay.
So why don't you go ahead and go first? I think I went first last week. What is the 5th best Scorsese scene for you?
All right. So Scorsese has some deservedly well-known musical interludes, montages that are put together to classic songs. And I'm going to go with maybe not the most obvious one, but it's the House of the Rising Sun montage in Casino, where basically everything starts to kind of pull back together and you kind of see all the dominoes finally that he's been setting up this entire movie. They all start to fall. And the way he kind of shoots it all together between Sharon Stone's OD in the hallway to what ultimately ends up being Joe Pesci's death at the end of the montage is fantastic. Obviously, the Layla montage always gets a lot of well-deserved, lot of well-deserved attention. So I decided to go with something maybe a little less known, but I think is still almost as good.
That's good. I would have mentioned the Layla one too. Didn't quite make the cut for me, but that is solid. So I'm actually going to go with this little bad bear.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the police, ma'am. Your son's been hit by a drunk driver. He's dead.
Oh, no, you cannot joke about that.
Yeah, that's not funny, Arthur. That's not the kind of humor we do on this show.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the Joker. I'm sorry. No, I mean the King of Comedy. I don't know how I got those films confused. What the hell's wrong with me? So, no, Robert De Niro is Robert Pupkin when he actually does his stand-up, right? So he's got Jerry Lewis, is held hostage, though he does escape. But he, one of his demands is that he is able to do his stand-up. And he's a huge hit, actually, when it happens. But him doing that moment with De Niro, delivering those jokes, having that stand-up routine, is one of my favorite Scorsese scenes. It's number 5 for me. I finally caught up with this film. Was it early this year? Having never seen it, and I'm so glad I did. Just a nice, dark, black comedy. Weird, but wonderful. So, that's 5.
Very good. All right, so my number 4 is, there are so many good scenes in Goodfellas, but the one that I'm going out with for number 4 is when Karen Hill, played by Lorraine Bracco, almost meets her demise, possibly. She goes to see Robert De Niro's Jimmy Conway, and they're in trouble with the law. Hill has been arrested, and everybody's afraid they're going to rat out Conway and the rest of the mob. And he suggests that maybe she go pick out a dress for herself. And as he stands watch, trying to urge her forward, she gets more and more creeping dread that there may be something seriously wrong here. And it's just a very quiet, understated scene. There's no music. It's really just De Niro and Bracco kind of playing off of each other as she treks further down to where she finally gets to that end, obviously where the maybe people are waiting to kill her, and the little hush hush as she approaches. But he's also got all these little touches in it. Do not enter, one way signs all over the place as she's walking, It's a good little touch, man. I think it's one of the, as many great scenes as there are in that film, I think it's one of the better ones. That certainly kind of puts you on the edge of your seat of, oh God, what's going to happen next?
Yep. No, that is a great one. No, that is, man, I'd actually kind of forgotten about that. That is so, oh, man, yeah, your nerves, you're right on the edge of your seat that whole time. So my number 4 then is the Copacabana Steadicam shot from Goodfellas. It is, it's just iconic. It really is. I mean, there have been tracking shots before, there have been tracking shots after, but that seems to be like the granddaddy of them all, that thing. As Scorsese's, the camera's weaving through the club, and you see everybody kind of, the wait staff, you're in the back, and he comes out, and everybody interacts, they bring the table down. Everything. It's just masterful filmmaking. So it's my number 4.
That's a really good one. That we'll have to see if we talk about that later.
All right, fair enough.
My number 3. I figured you wouldn't include this because Chris likes to he doesn't like to bring up cliche things. He doesn't want to bring up the stuff that's like necessarily the thing that everybody would think of. So I'm going to bring it up because you know what? I'm a man of the people. And my number 3 is De Niro playing Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. The scene, basically the you talking to me scene, which I believe, if I remember correctly, that was mostly improvised by De Niro.
It was.
And it really shows, it's basically, again, just De Niro and a mirror and a camera, basically catching everything that's on film. And it really kind of tells you everything you need to know about Bickle's state of mind and his character in that. It's one of the most iconic scenes that there are from 70s cinema.
No, that's true. I mean, Scorsese, that's a sign of a good director, when he knows just to step back, right, and let the actor do what he's going to do. So, no, that's a pretty solid pick. So then here's my number 3.
Where the fuck you get off talking to people about me behind my back going over my head?
What people?
What people would you think? I wasn't gonna find out?
I don't even know what you're talking about, Nick.
No? You said I'm bringing heat on you? I gotta listen to people because of your fucking shit? You're ordering me out? You better get your own fucking army, pal.
I didn't do anything. I mean, I didn't order you or anybody. I only told Andy Stone that you had a lot of heat on you, and that was a problem.
You want me to get out of my own fucking town?
Yeah, I said let the bullshit blow over for a while so I can run the casino. Anything goes wrong with the casino, it's my ass. It's not yours, it's my ass.
I don't know whether you notice or not, but you only have your fucking casino because I made that possible. I'm what counts out here, not your fucking country clubs or your fucking TV shows. And what the fuck are you doing on TV anyhow? You know, I get calls from back home every fucking day. They think you went batshit.
I'm only on TV because I gotta be able to hang around the casino. You understand that?
You
know that.
fucking
Come on.
ass. You could have had the food and beverage job without going on television. You wanted to go on TV.
Yeah, I did want to go on TV. That way I have a forum. I can fight back. I'm known. People see me. They know they can't fuck around with me like they could if I was an unknown. That's right.
You're making a big fucking spectacle of yourself.
Me? I wouldn't even be in this situation if it wasn't for you. You brought down so much fucking heat on me. I mean, every time I meet somebody, the big question is, do I know you?
Oh, sure. Now you want to blame your fucking license on me.
No,
is that it?
Nikki, when you asked me if you could come out here, what did I tell you? I mean, you asked me, and I knew you were going to come out no matter what I said, but what did I tell you? Do you remember what I told you?
Back
Do you
up,
remember
back
what
up
I
a
told
fucking
you?
minute here. 1 minute. I asked you, when the fuck did I ever ask you if I could come out here? Get this through your head, you. Get this through your head, you Jew motherfucker, you. You only exist out here because of me. That's the only reason. Without me, you, personally, every fucking wise guy still around will take a piece of your fucking Jew ass. Then where you gonna go? Your fucking warrant don't ever go over my fucking head again, you motherfucker, you.
So anyway, I know it's a long clip, but
Motherfucker. It's a motherfucker.
I love Pesci in Casino. He is so great in that film. And one of the things I love about that film is, I remember when I first watched it being kind of underwhelmed. But this is, I think, one of Scorsese's best films because he dispenses with the romanticism of the gangster film in this movie, right? It's much more authentic and real and terrifying than it is, like, I think, even in Goodfellas. So That particular scene where the two of them meet in the desert and just Pesci just nails that. I mean, God, he is so great in that scene. And then in that whole film. So that's it. It's the desert meeting in Casino. That's my 3.
All right. Well, my number 2, talking about glamorizing the mob lifestyle, is the tracking shot from the Copacabana in Goodfellas. Not only the technical wizardry of it, which is absolutely fantastic, as Chris alluded to earlier, but it shows what the allure is. You know, it shows basically, this kind of people with smiles, this kind of, extended family, everybody's welcome. You get all these privileges, all this, power and influence, and for what? It all seems extremely attractive. Again, as Karen Hill says, I think she literally says, I have to admit, I found it very attractive. And that sets up everything else after it. And that's why, it's basically why people do what they do in this thing, because of that stuff. So it's a great scene.
No, you're entirely right. My number 2 then is the fight scene, particularly the end in Raging Bull, when LaMotta goes up against Sugar Ray Robinson and Robinson beats the hell out of him. But the way Scorsese shoots this, of course, remember the film's in black and white, but his use of lighting as well. The whole thing is just incredible. How everything almost goes dark. And then Robinson comes in and then just beats the hell out of him. But he doesn't go down, and that's what happens. The fight gets called, and De Niro's LaMotta goes up to him and says, "You never got me down. You never got me down." And it just is such a powerful film, and it says so much about that character. That scene alone, basically, is the entire premise and treatise of that whole film is encapsulated into that one scene. And it is just a beautiful and sickening scene, but it is probably the best. It's the best thing in that film, and one of the best things Scorsese's ever done. So that's mine. Never got me down from Raging Bull.
Yeah, that's my number 1, actually. Just to piggyback on what Chris said, I mean, just the technical, wizardry that Scorsese puts on display. Not only even just the darkness, but there's a name for it, and I forget what it is, but it's basically like a zoom tracking shot where Sugar Ray stays in focus, but everything behind him stretches off into infinity, just basically as LaMotta kind of becomes more and more beaten and just dazed as he watches this. And just the way Scorsese frames Sugar Ray, like he's almost like this monster coming out of the dark. He's like this demonic figure that's just here to ruin Jake LaMotta. It's basically come to collect for all of his sins, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's such a good scene, just from a technical standpoint and a story standpoint, artistic standpoint. So I think it's my favorite scene of his.
Wow, that was much better articulated than what I said. So you're entirely right about that. Well done. So my number 1 then. Sometimes you have to stand a cliche.
You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, who the hell else are you talking to? Talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here. Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Oh, yeah? Huh? Okay. Huh?
So the reason why, Matt, I didn't make this my honorary Travis Bickle list.
I'm shocked. I thought I knew you better than that.
Because of reason. This is his most iconic scene, I think. And it's better than the cliched representations and copies make it out to be. It's become so watered down and almost a joke that people tend to lose the impact that scene actually has. And if you to actually watch it today, watch the whole film, don't just watch that scene, but when you get to that scene, as his character is clearly unraveling into madness, and it is terrifying. And you lose that a little bit, right? Because of all the copycats and all the jokes made about it now. But the sheer intensity and just how terrifying that entire scene really is, watching it, not just in the context of the film in general, but just that performance alone, it is just, it hits you like a sledgehammer. It is fantastic. And I think it deserves to be number 1 just because of that. I think popular culture has hurt its impact, I think, unfortunately, because
Mhm.
it is really a powerful scene. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Of the ones we haven't mentioned, I'll go back to the Goodfellas well, where De Niro's in the bar and he decides to kill the annoying wig owner and Maury. Basically, it's just with a look and with "Sunshine of Your Love" playing. It's basically, but that's it. There's no dialogue. There's nothing. He just keeps looking over in Maury's direction as he smokes menacingly. McConaughey's acting thing in Wolf of Wall Street, where he does the slamming of his chest, which I guess is something McConaughey really does to psych himself up. And DiCaprio thought it was so funny, he insisted that he put it in the scene. And the elevator execution at the end of The Departed, that's just like bam, 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 bam. That was just crazy to me. And then from one of his later pieces, Kichijiro's confession from silence, where he basically declares his faith while people are being burned alive because he will not repent or will not, go back on his beliefs.
No, those are all great. I had actually all of those as well. That Departed elevator ending, though, Matt, it's one of the best subversions of expectations. I think you don't expect it. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it hits you. Spider getting shot, like you said, in Goodfellas. How Am I Funny from Goodfellas, of course. It's a classic one. Get Your Shine Box. And I would just throw, too, in The Irishman, a film that I like a lot more than you, but Pacino talking about how it's his union. Or when he's meeting with, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but they have that whole fight about him being late in Florida in the restaurant. Is great. And then, of course, when De Niro and Pesci, when Pesci tells De Niro, he tells him basically what's going to happen now with Hoffa. Then it's it's either way he's going, and that scene is just so great.
Yeah.
So that's it, folks. Those are the lists. Shoot us an email, feedback@thefirstrun.com. Let us know your thoughts. What are your 5 favorite Martin Scorsese scenes? Next week, as we said, it's supposed to be The Devils as part of our band marathon. On the list is Miss Juneteenth, which I am excited to check out, so we'll see that as well. In the meantime, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Do a search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually you will find us. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. We'll read it on the air and it'll help other people find the show. And that's it. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. We're going to go ahead and take an extended break, and we'll see you all soon.